And it says like this, right in the middle of the page, Tes Vav. You see that period there we're going to start from? Anyone?
Brazil? What's the first one?
It's well, you have a different book, but the lines, it's going to start Va'al Shem Zeh. It's a Rosh Tevos, which is Vav Ayin Shin Zayin, and it says Va'al Shem Zeh Nikroi Yisrael Tzivos Hashem. Based on this, the Jewish people, based on all of this, everything we've said up until now, right? We're concluding again the second mimer. The Jewish people are called Tzivos Hashem, which literally means the legions of God, right? Like the forces, the legions of God. Kamosh Kasuv, as we're going to see in the parshas that we're working on right now, B'Shalach. Vayehi be'etzem hayom hazeh, to kol tzivos Hashem eretz Yisrael. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is even today's Chumash. And it says, on the essence of this day, all the tzivos Hashem, all the legions of Hashem went out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. Hine tzivos Hashem hakavana al Yisrael. What is it referring to when it says the legions of Hashem? It's talking about us, the Jews. We're called the legions of Hashem. V'kamoshe kasuv vahi be'etzem hayom hazeh hotzi Hashem es b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim al tzivosam. Another sort of proof text that we are called tzivos Hashem, because the next verse says, on the essence of this day, Hashem took the b'nei Yisrael, there, so we're mentioned, from Eretz Yisrael, al tzivosam, according to their legions. So we see that it's referring to b'nei Yisrael.
Just
Yeah.
to correct your last verse, I think it's the Parshas Bo.
Parshas Bo. But what about this one?
No, this one, it's Shem.
Sham. They're both from Parshas Bo. Last week Parsha. I knew it sounded familiar. The tzrich lomar mahu zeh d'Yisrael nikroim tzivos havaya. What does it mean that we gain this title called tzivos Hashem? And again, this is a continuation of my Marim. We're going to begin this question here, and it's going to be developed very deeply as we go on. But what does it mean that we're called the legions of God? The Shem Tzivakos lo nizkar b'Torah, right? There's one mimer in Torah Or on Parshas Bo, right? I should have known from the Chassidus which pasuk it was in. There's one mimer, and in other words, which is unusual, right? Usually in Torah Or, there's several mimarim. If you've ever checked out the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus there, and the whole mimer is based on this question, that in the whole Torah, Hashem never uses the holy name Hashem Tzivakos. You'll notice that I'm not saying the name when it can be used as a divine name. There's 7 names of Hashem that cannot be erased, and Tzivakos is one of them. So when you say Hashem Tzivakos, God of legions, then it's referring to God. But when you say Tzivos Hashem, there I did say the full name. I didn't say Tzivakos. I said Tzivos Hashem. There it's not considered a divine name, and it's referring to the Jewish people, and it's talking about the legions of God. So when it's God of legions, it's a divine name that can't be erased. When it's the legions of God, it's referring to the Jewish people, and it's not a divine name, and it can be erased. So in the Torah itself, the name Tzivakos as a name of God does not exist. It's only found first in the prophets, right? So it's a whole divine name that doesn't even live in the Torah. The only place it lives in the Torah is when it's referring to the Jewish people. And then there, it's not God's name. It's Tzivos Hashem. It's referring to us, right? So he says this name is a little bit wondrous because it's not found in the Torah. The Kan Koras Yisrael Tzivos Hashem, but we are called Tzivos Hashem, which means we are sort of in place of God in the usage of that name, interestingly, right? And why specifically is that name used? We don't find that the Jewish people are just regularly called that. We're called that at the moment of truth. We're called it at the time of the redemption from Egypt, Mamish, like literally the moment of going out. At the essence of this day, Hashem took out his legions from Eretz Mitzrayim. That's when it's used, only in like the moment of redemption. Again, another pasuk. That in the essence of the day, I took out your legions from Mitzrayim. So there we see this divine name used, but it's used as a name for us. So we're going to look uncloak this a little bit. That the word itself, tzava, which is where tzivos Hashem comes from. Mind you, a secondary point. Maybe it's the main point, but the Rebbe, again, based the whole generation on this mimer, as I'm sure you've got that down by now, right? Every year he returned to it and he said, another mimer. We have 40 mimarim on this mimer alone. and he named the entire Jewish children's movement in the world Tzivos Hashem. I'm sure you've heard of it, right? And from day one, a child in a Hasidic home, and it's spreading to also non-Hasidic homes and making all homes Hasidic homes, are taught that you're in the army of Hashem. You're part of Tzivos Hashem, and you get stripes, and you go to army meetings, and you get and you become a cadet, and then you become a lieutenant and a general. You basically raise in ranks, and it's a whole game that the children play, and they get higher up ranking on the more the mitzvahs they do. That he put the whole generation inside of this concept that the Friedrich Rebbe brings out of this final mimer. That the Jewish people are called Tzivos Hashem. And he literally called us that so that every Chassid knows he's part of the army of Hashem. What's it all about? Why is that so significant, especially in our times? Especially in a generation, mind you, where the Jewish people literally had to form an army. I think at this point, we're the only country in the world that has a mandatory draft. If you live in this country, you're taka part of Tzivos Hashem, whether you like it or not. Right? So,
and never lost the war.
There you go. If we lost the war, he wouldn't have any more Jews, so he definitely never lost a war. So the idea is that, chas v'shalom, what does it mean, tzava? This word, this word, let's let him define it. It actually has three different meanings. One is lashon chayu. I guess the most one that we've been discussing is that it means a soldier, right? Base, and these are a little bit less known. These other two, zman mugbal. It means a limited period of time. How do you know? Because it says, Halo tzava le'enosh aleyaretz. It's because there's a pasuk that says, isn't there a limited time for man upon the earth? And the word for limited time is tzava. So it means army, man, and it means a limited period of time. And thirdly, tzvion means colors, actually. It means like a plurality, like a plethora of things. Kamayim Razal, and where do we see the usage of tzava in this way? Because it says right in the beginning of the Torah, "Vayichulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol tzva'am." There you have. What does that word mean? Tzva'am, right? So tzvionam, it's tzvionam nivreu. So it says in their sort of plurality, their colorness, their sort of spread, they were created. It means that there is a unique, set of things that are all different from each other. So now we have these three meanings of the same word. And the meaning here is that the souls of Israel are called Tzivos Hashem because we are a plurality. That we're not really all one, right? It says you have two Jews, you have three opinions, right? And the idea is that you have a very unique thing. We have a tiny, small piece of land the size of Mamish, Rhode Island, and yet we're supposed to have 12 different tribes living inside of this land, each one with completely unique qualities. This one by land, this one by sea, this one by air. It's a whole wondrous collection of different entities. And of course, we're compared to the menorah. And the menorah is a seventh branched menorah, which means there's some Jews that have the soul root from Chesed, and some from Gevor, and some from Tiferes, not one like the other. So that's one of the reasons why we're called Tzivos Hashem, because we're like a plurality of different powers. Balias, and he gives a different way of understanding us. Bali Hasaga, some of us are geniuses. Shem Mari Torah, Umari the Razin V'Sodos Eloin, Umari Chachmasa. Some of the Jews are Torah scholars, and they're masters of the secrets, of the higher secrets, and of the wisdom of God. But you also have simple Jews. And they're just masters of good deeds. You see a simple Jew sometimes, if you look at the Friedrich Rebbe's writings about these simple Jews, or how the Baal Shem Tov loved these simple Jews, they're like the salt of the earth. They're the most unbelievable people, filled like earth with resources beyond measure. Shemekayim is the Torah mitzvahs b'tmimus, that they fulfill the Torah mitzvahs with simpleness. What was it? With a simplicity. Thank you. Just a beautiful, their inside is like their outside, and just it's also an amazing quality. Gam oskim ish bavodasu. Every Jew occupied in his own business, the fi arku, and according to his level, but tamchin deraisa, also supporters of the Torah. Begufam umamona. Whether it be with their body, they're running around cleaning up shuls and helping people, or with their money, that they give heavy-duty tzedakah and establish things. So each Jew has different powers that they bring to the table. That is our, so to speak, why we're called Tzivos Hashem, from the language of colorful, or like a plurality. And why is a plurality called colorful? Why am I bringing these two words together? It wasn't just my own 2 cents. It's because when you have a plurality, that's what's called colorful, because colorful means really beautiful. Why? Because the tachlis hayofi masha kalumi ribo gavanim. What is considered beautiful, this is just like a principle, I guess, of aesthetics, is that what's considered truly beautiful is when something is made out of a plurality of colors. If you just have one color, it's not beautiful, right? And if you have another color by itself, it's not beautiful. When you mix these colors together, you get something called tiferes, right? So even by us, we know there's chesed, gevur, and tiferes. Chesed on its own, not beautiful. Gevur on its own, not beautiful. When you mix them together, the word for the mixture of those two spheres is tiferes. What does tiferes mean?
Harmony.
Beauty. The word tiferes means beauty. We literally have it like built into our language that when you mix two opposite things together, you make a third thing. It's called beautiful. So the idea is that to the Jewish people, we're all a bunch of mixed entities, and that's why we're called colorful, i.e. beautiful. The Gevin Echad Ari Ein Bo Yofi. One color doesn't have what's called beauty. The Dafka Riboy Gavanim, only many colors. Mamshichim Gilu Bechinas Havaya Al Yedei Avodasa. Right? And when we have this beauty, we also draw down the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei through our service. Where do we see there's a connection between Tiferes and Yud Kei Vav Kei? That's what. Where do you get to Yud Kei Vav Kei? Because it's called Tzivos Hashem, right? So the legions of Hashem can also now be read as, so to speak, the colorfulness of the Jewish people who are called Tzivos. And that leads to Yud Kei Vav Kei, as opposed to any other divine name, the true glory of Hashem, which what does Yud Kei Vav Kei represent? It represents the Sovev light, the roof, like we were talking about, the infinite light, which is beyond all worlds. We're Tzivos, when we're in the state of beauty and interconnection, we're called Tiferes, which then draws down the Shem Havaya. And go ahead, what's the answer? Where do we see that Tiferes is connected with Havaya? How about this? Hu Haya, V'hu Hoveh, V'hu yiyeh b'sifara. Right, it says it right there. Haya hoveh v'yiyeh is basically past, present, and future, which is the combination of the word which spells Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name, our name of God, which is the name of God in Judaism is a word which means was, is, and will be, all in one word grammatically. It's awesome. And it says, mamash, we say it every single day in a prayer called Adon Olam, that he was, is, and will be in tifara, in beauty. So when the Jewish people are called Tiferes or Tzivyonim, right? Tzivyon, we're called Tzivos Hashem. We draw down the Shem Hashem because that combination of opposites is what accesses the infinite light. Okay, so that's one reason why we're called, that's a reason of Tzava. Yeah.
Rough question. Where did we get the word like colors from? Where did colors
The word Tzava means colors. It means a plurality of things, which is basically, like it says, he created the he created he finished the heavens and earth and all their tzava. What does it mean? So it's like the majesty of all the multiplicity, right? And we're saying, and that basically is the word for colorful, because we're saying that when you have one thing, it's not called beautiful, right? When you have two colors, it's not called beautiful. When you have two colors mixed together and it makes a third color, that's called beautiful. So that's really the idea of where it all comes together there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so that's the word tzava, meaning beauty.
But
Yeah.
But there are certain colors that are already a combination. Like red already is like a combination. No, it's already a combination.
No, red.
Something else. Red is a primary color.
Primary color, but okay. So, but even so, when you mix the two and you make a third, it's beautiful. I think he's talking about just having or a third which is made out of some other two things. The point is that it's not called beauty if it's just black and white, right? If it's just basically one thing or the other without some kind of a blend, right? Then it doesn't have the like Torah stamp of being able to be called beautiful. As I was pointing out, that the word tiferes, beauty, in our language is a word which means a joining of two things and making a third thing and making this combination. Literally the definition of the word beauty. Okay, so then we have the second meaning of tzava, which is tzava is hagabala, zman, hagabala, umoed, right? That this means limitation and time, right? That, like we said before, that a man has a limited time on earth. It's called tzava. You have a question? Okay. Well, derech yamim yutzaru v'lo echad. And this is like the pasuk which says days were formed and not one. In other words, just talking about like the life of man, that you were given days that were formed for you, not one, right? More than one. But we see from there also that this is the notion that a person has a limited life, that there's a certain limit to it. Like we said, there's a limited man, again, the word tzava, the limited time for le'enosh, for man, ale aretz, on the world. Days, right, were formed, not one. And therefore, every person has to know that he's got a limited time on his life. Why is this extremely significant right at this point in the Maimer? Who remembers what we said before? Each one of these Maimarim ends with the Frierdiker Rebbe talking about how long will a man live. In the first Maimer, he started saying at the very end of the Maimer, person doesn't know how long he's going to be here. No one's going to wait for him to like organize his household. Like you could be taken at any moment. And again, this was the day that this was given out was the day he passed away. So all this like prophetic. He's telling you like this is my will and testament for the next generation. So here he starts with it again. The word tzava means a limited time that a person doesn't know. A person has a limited fixed time on this earth. Because he's basically describing himself here. When you finish your days and your refinement process, right? What is every day given to you for, right? It says by Avram Avinu, it says Baba Yamim. Avram Zaken Baba Yamim. Avram got old. He came in days, which means basically, his days matured and he was at the end of his days. But what does the Zohar say? Baba Yamim. He came with his days. Where did he come? He came to heaven with all of his days. And every moment and every second, he never. This is why we talk about him thousands of years later. As the world is filled with his children and who praise him, and he stands in the heavens forever for a defense for us, because he was a perfect man. He came to heaven with all of his days. Every single day that was given to him, he used it to perfection, to the point that he was called a Merkava, a chariot of God, which means that he didn't have a will of his own. He just went wherever God moved him. Every second he was using his limited moments in this world for the divine purpose. Right? He didn't take time off. So this is what the Rebbe is saying. A person has a limited time of work, of refining this world, of iskafi and ishafcha, subjugating the evil inclination, ultimately transforming all evil into light. Azu bichlal tzivos Hashem. And when you do that, you are now part of what's called tzivos Hashem. Then you can be called the legions of God. So he just put all sort of three together. That when the Jewish people, as a group, basically, we're all utilizing our Avas Yisrael and our interconnectivity, right? With our limited time on this earth, the one explanation of tzava, and the second one, then you wind up finishing your job and you're called Tzivos Hashem. You're now the third explanation, which is you're the legions of God, you're the army of God. Which, when is that word used? When we're being taken out of Mitzrayim. In other words, when we finish the job, we will be released from this exile. And that's when we're called the legions of Havaya, meaning to say that the army has completed its job. It is now being ready to be taken out of Mitzrayim, which means limitations, which means exile. Question? And that's what it means. And the essence of this day, all of the legions of Hashem came out of Mitzrayim. And what do we say the legions of Hashem refer to? Us, the Jewish people. And here it is. Through our work in this world of subjugating and refining everything and transforming, we wind up refining the world. The world is not the same place, right? And let me explain what that means. There's periods of refinement, right? It says that why wasn't the Torah given to the world right away, right? If the whole purpose of creation was that Hashem wanted to give the Jewish people a Torah so that they could refine the world, why didn't he just start Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim va'aretz v'anochi Hashem Elokecha, right? And give you the Ten Commandments day one? Why was there this 26 generation wait, right? And only then, because the world was in such a state of coarseness that the Torah couldn't even come into the world yet. And that was the reason for the flood, right? The flood,
coarseness.
Coarseness.
What does that mean?
Coarseness means like thickness and grubness and crassness, right? In other words, like a person who he can't even be spoken to because his head is so in places of filth and garbage that how are you going to go out there and start to speak to him about the preciousness of a mitzvah? He's mamish in the brothel drunk at the moment, right? It's like you're not going to, the guy's not, there's no one home to talk to. Or he just joined Stalin's army and you're going to go start and put tefillin on him? He's not shaykh, he's too coarse, right? So the world has to be basically refined and purified. And according to Hasidus, that's why the flood was brought. Because the flood was not just a destructive force, it was a purifying force. And once the flood was brought and the whole world basically went through this mikvah, then Noah could begin. And even then it was still too coarse. That's why Noah couldn't get anyone to do tshuva. And only after time, then finally the Torah was given to the world. Once the Torah was given to the world, now we had the tools to refine the world, at least with the Torah. But it took thousands of years until we got to the point where there's a Beis HaMikdash and a temple in the world. Now the temples in the world, this level of divinity can refine it even more. So there's refinement and refinement and refinement. And as we go forward, what do you think the Hasidic revolution was all about, right? Now, not only the Torah was given to the world, but the inner dimension of the Torah was given to the world, which now allows for the inner dimension of science to come and be revealed. And now we can mamish see deeper, more refined qualities of the world than we ever saw before. And so it goes. So what he's saying is, as we do this process with the Torah mitzvahs of refining things and purifying the state of the world, right? What is that called? It's called from making a kesher to a keresh, right? What do we say this is all about? The kesher was what? The shin and the resh, the kuf and the resh, which were these negative letters, which grabbed the shin, which was a little tiny piece of truth in order to maintain their existence. If you remember from the previous memorim, and that's spelled kesher or sheker, we take this world of sheker and kesher and we refine it and it becomes what? Please help me here.
Kerish.
Thank you. It becomes a keresh, becomes a board of the Mishkan, which means we can connect the floor to the ceiling and draw the Orient Sofa to this world. And when we do that for thousands of years, with all the power of the Torah behind us, we finally get called Tzivos Hashem, which means Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh, Hashem took us out al Tzivosam, from our legions. So the idea is that through, again, working together in Achdus and beauty, and realizing that we're in this finite, separate world, limited in time and space, and finishing the job of refining it, we become called the Tzivos Hashem, the legions of God. Masha Olam Mari Otzmol Matzias. This that the world shows itself as some type of independent existence, this rock-like, separated existence. Hari is a sheker. It's a lie. It only looks like it sits here by itself and does whatever it wants. The reality is it's being enlivened by Hashem every second. It's just that it's going so low that we can't see it. So it's lying right before your eyes every single second of your life. So the truth of this life, it wouldn't be here, this whole world, unless God was enlivening it every second. But we don't experience that. We experience it like it's sitting here for billions of years. No one made it. It's just hanging out by itself. Do whatever you like. It's a lie. When you learn Torah and you do mitzvahs, or even walk into the shul, like we said, you take this world of sheker and you bring a little bit of truth into it. Hey, there's a Torah, there's a God. The real story is like this. Let me clarify it for you. And you take that sheker and you rearrange the letters and it becomes a beam of the Mishkan Keresh, which is made out of atzei shitim, right? Which is made out of a wood, which is called, the word for the wood is foolish, which again, this world is foolish. It's called shtus. And you take this shtus and you turn it into atzei shitim, beams of shtus, which are now, you made shtus into kedusha. Which means you connected the floor to the ceiling, which means you've drawn out the Or Ein Sof, because remember what we said at the beginning of the class. Only the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, not heavenly light, not mere lights of Atzilus, not mere lights of Bri and Yetzirah. Only essence, heavenly light can go so far as to actually permeate this world. And how is it done? By walking into a shul. By basically bringing a touch of godliness here, you unleash the Or Ein Sof. And the proof that it's the Or Ein Sof is that it reached even here. And therefore, we're called Tzivos Hashem, means we're the legions of Hashem, just like we said before, that when we're called Tiferes, we reach the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the infinite light. That's also what it means, the simple meaning, Tzivos Hashem. Yes, the word Hashem Tzivakos is not in the Torah, but Tzivos Hashem is, which the Jewish people, we are the legions of Hashem. Simple, it means it's just like we're Hashem's army. But when you realize what the word Hashem means, the word Hashem means Haya Hove V'Yiyeh Ke'echad. It means the Sovev light. We are its army. The essence of God, we are its messenger. We serve it, like the rabbi said in the Fabrengen last night. It was an amazing thing. If you're going to pick on a U.S. soldier, you're picking on the U.S. of A, right? You just picked a fight not with Billy Bob. You picked a fight with Mamish, the whole USA, because you're a representative of the entire country. So too, the Sivos Hashem, we are the legions of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So therefore, the name Sivos Hashem means that we reveal and draw down this level of Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei. And we do this with Tzavu Huzman Mugbal in our limited moments of time. You'll say, who am I to mamish draw down the essence of God? Maybe an angel in the higher worlds can do. No. Dafka you who lives in a limited moment of time. This like ridiculous lie that there even is such a thing as a limited moment of time. The fact that you think that there's a beginning and an end to anything is already because you're living in a rock world who's disconnected from truth entirely. And yet specifically there in that world of Sheker, you have the ability to draw the essence of God, because the fact that you can bring godliness into such a low place must be proof that it's coming from the essence. Sivos Hashem. The kol avodasam asher yamim yitzaru shenitan lechol echad v'echad, that all the service, the last line, all the service that we do in these few days that were formed for us, our limited life, yeh lo echad. So going back to the original pasuk, it says yamim yitzaru, days were formed v'lo echad, not one. You could read the word lo either not, or with an aleph, lamed aleph, or the word lo can also be lamed vav, which means to him. So days are formed. Lo echad means that it's actually in this limited period of time, these formed days that we have. Lo echad, we bring the oneness to him, right? Because we draw out the true oneness of Hashem, dafka, from this limited place of existence, and therefore that means we reveal the glory of Hashem through our avoda in the level of Hashem echad. Did you get that last point? Because lo echad means that they're one for him. Because we have these limited form days, we usher specifically from this lowest world the essential oneness of God, which is equal in all the worlds. Yeah.
But the word here is spelled not with a vav.
No, it's actually I think this is one of the, if I'm not mistaken, it's written with a lamed, but it's pronounced with an aleph, or the other way around. It's written with an aleph, but it's pronounced with a vav. In other words, like there's something called even though it sounds the same, there's something called the kri and the ksav, right? The idea is the way you read it and the way that you say it. So there's a lot of words like that, where basically in the Torah it's written one way, but we have by oral tradition that you actually read it with a different meaning. There's many words like that, and they're always used in this way. Like, why did Hashem do it like that? He gave us a tradition to read it one way, but to write it another way, it's because God is infinite. He wants to say two things at the exact same time, right? So on one hand, it's telling you the simple meaning of the verse, which is that you have formed days, right? Not one, but you have a handful of days here. And simultaneous trying to tell you that because you live in a finite world made out of merely finite days, therefore, you have the power to bring the true oneness out of divinity, whereas the higher worlds cannot do that because they have limited light, because they don't have limited time, because they last forever, and they don't have formed days, right? Therefore, they're not in a position to draw from the Kesser, which is the infinite light, which can bring light even into the most distant, pushed off places. Kitzer, to finally end this mimer. Yamshich the kesher v'sheker the olam nafach lekeresh hamishkan. We said that the falseness of the world gets turned into the keresh of the mishkan, and through this basi lagani, right? I've come to my garden, which means Hashem is going to return to the earth, and through that chaveri makshivim, the angels are going to listen to our voice, because we're the ones that elicit the sovev light, and that's why the Jewish people are called Sivos Hashem. With all those meanings that we said, whether a soldier, limited time, and in a combination of beauty, again, Tiferes, drawn out from our sort of partnering up and working together. L'chaim, l'chaim.